Alright, fiddling with my video camera here. This morning I'm working on this RV that I bought a while back. While we were out in Wyoming, had a problem with the slide out. It started leaking fluid and then opening and closing at an erratic way. We had to do it manually with the winch in there. I'll hook it back up to these lines to test it, but reading in the HWH stuff, and they're saying to disconnect one of these two lines and run it over here into the reservoir while you test it. I've got to get underneath it and track down which one of those is coming from the synchronizing cylinder. And so I've supported the slide out with these cribbings, and I'm about to disconnect. I'm about to disconnect this arm that slides the slide out because that cylinder is leaking in there. You can see the oil down in there. And it's a mess, so I'm going to take that out and see if I can get it rebuilt. Okay, so this guy was broke off completely. Okay, so as I showed you on the other side, that was bent pretty bad. This one was bent so bad it was broke off, so I took the nut off of the end here and pulled this piece out. Now, this piece is tightening no matter which way I go, so I've got to figure out what's going on with that. And both of those I'm going to need to replace. Working on the 1999 Winnebago Chieftain slide out. This cylinder was leaking really bad. I've disassembled it. There's a O-ring here on the piston, and that slides into this cylinder. This tube here screws in with the elbow at that end of the cylinder. These are the parts. These are my old ones. These are the new ones. All it is an O-ring on this cylinder. There's a O-ring that goes around here. I imagine it's this one right here. Goes around those threads. There's a wiper right here. And on the inside, there's a seal. It's this one right here. It's in there about 1 inch or so. See, it's got like a little O-ring in there that this is a wiper. It's the right size except for the diameter, so I had to cut it. All it does is wipe the dirt off each time you open and close it, so it's got a really tight fit, even though it's this piece was just cut and shortened and stuck in there. So I can't do this one-handed, but I put the piston inside the cylinder. Can't really push them together, but that just slides together. This piece goes on here after I put the O-ring on it. Can't tighten it up with one hand, but this is where that tube goes. That's got the elbow and the tube on it. I've not finished tightening this down. I'm just doing it for demonstration, but I'm going to tighten this together. When I took it apart, you really couldn't see that seam very well. So it goes together pretty good. These are flare joints, and this is just a threaded. At the other end of the tube goes into that little hole. That's just a rubber grommet. I'll pop that out, it's split. Put that around the tube. And the tube goes through that big hole. So this is the synchronizing cylinder. It's got a supply line here that is teed together and goes to both of the slide out cylinders. This is the end that I followed all the way back to the reservoir and put into the reservoir. Disconnected it, put it into the reservoir, and capped off where it came from. So this is the way I'm putting this together. I've got this in the cylinder in the vise. I'm going to use 2 pipe wrenches. One to grab that in, and one to grab right in there. Okay, so that's what it looks like in my messy shop here. But the joint is real close together. When the paint was on it, you couldn't hardly even see it. But that's the way I broke it apart. I know it's not the right tools, but that's what I had to use. Then I'm going to use this Permatex Aviation Forma gasket sealant on that joint. I've got the end on the cylinder. The tube is through the hole with that little rubber piece in there. I extended the cylinder out enough that I can work on the end, because I'm about to slide it in to the mechanism here, right in through there. And I'm gonna put the nuts, there's 2 nuts that go and hold this onto that. And that's with the cylinder in there. I'm about to add the nuts. 15/16 and 5/8 for here and on the flat right there. Yeah, and then on the end of this cylinder, there's a lock washer right there, a little star lock washer. So this is the instruction sheet that I was looking at from HWH, and it's got the diagram coming from that synchronizing cylinder being disconnected from the manifold and going into the reservoir. Now this doesn't look exactly like mine, so that's why I had to track the hoses back. And basically what the instructions are saying is you put that into the reservoir, then you run the cylinders all the way out. You hold it for about 5 seconds after they're all the way extended. Then you put it all back together and you run them in. And when I ran them in, I cracked this hose right here that's coming from the far end. I cracked it and let the air bleed out a little and caught it into that bucket. And then after that, I cranked it tight and started extending and retracting until they started running smoothly together. Now I'm going to put the whole thing back together onto the coach. Okay, extend them out. All right, let's bring them back out. Okay. Okay, so I just set this slide mechanism up here. This piece is the part that goes in the back. And this piece right here is what bolts up here. So it's fairly heavy for an old guy. So I'm gonna use this 2x4. I'm gonna rest it against this bracket where the carrier goes and the frame of the RV back in there, and then slide it in position. Looks like it works.